All right, I think we have finally reached the final 20 albums, my top death metal albums of 2023. This is part four. Part one, two, and three have been released. Links in description if you want to catch up from there. And I know I said I was going to rank the top 10. I would honestly say this is probably my top 20 ranked. Now that I've written it out and I've looked at it, it's safe to say that. So these next two videos are going to be my top 20 death metal albums of 2023. So I'm very excited to film this. A lot of great music to talk about, especially within my top 10 albums that I've just absolutely loved this year and want to show more love to. So let's go ahead and get started with number 20. We are at a new contender, one that just recently, within the last month or so, I've really fallen in love with, and that is the new Sulphur Aeon album, Seven Crowns and Seven Seals. Now, this is a band out of Germany. They are a blackened death metal band. Definitely has a lot of black metal influences in this, especially on this album, on Von Records. And in a couple of videos ago, I mentioned this was an incredibly hard record for me to get this year. It kept selling out when I was able to finally get it. And this is a special slipcover on it. But I think you'll most notably recognize it by the original album cover with the amazing artwork from Paolo Girardi. This is their fourth full-length album. I do like their last album, The Scythe and the Cosmic Chaos. The Scythe of Cosmic Chaos while talking. I really enjoyed that album. And this one I think is probably my favorite so far that I've heard from them. Just very, got a lot of melodicism to it. The guitars are awesome. I love the guitar riffs on this. Very interesting vocal takes. And just, it is a very interesting album. It's very well written and it's very, very good. It kept my interest the whole entire time. I've listened to it so many times. And this is a spectacular album. I know a lot of people really enjoy it and they've been giving it a lot of praise. So that makes me happy. So yeah, this is by far my number 20 of 2023. The next one I don't actually own physically, and this is Nurrectomy with Overwrought. Now you're probably like, what? What is this? Because I have not talked about this at all on my channel, and this is a last minute contender that came in on November 17th was when their official release date of this album was. And that album cover, look at it, really got my attention. And I looked at that, I go, well, first of all, that is 100% brutal death metal. Second of all, there's probably a technical aspect to it. And third of all, I'm probably going to love it. And that is exactly what happened. I don't know a whole lot about this band, but I know that they're from New York and that they're a trio, and that their main drummer, who is incredible, is from Malefic Throne. So there you go. Hate Eternal. And he's done a bunch of other stuff. He's been in Gorguts and Skinless and the Red Court, and that is John Longstreth. I probably butchered your last name. I'm so sorry. So that essentially gave me a inkling that I was going to like this album, and that is essentially what it is. It is very well put together, brutal technical death metal. It is a little bit of a noodle soup when you listen to it. It does scramble the brain a bit when you listen to it. But in terms of my interest of death metal this year, I've definitely gone way towards the brutal death metal side than I have in a lot of recent years. And this really, really, it clicked pretty fast with me. I do have it on pre-order. I think it should be coming. The CD should be coming pretty soon. I'm really excited to get it. I've been listening to this album just about every morning since it's come out. I've been tweeting about it and everything. It's fun. It's engaging. And this is going to be one that'll be a lasting one within my rotation of listening. So if you're not familiar with this band, which is possible that you probably aren't, although if you're into brutal techno death metal, you definitely know who this is, I'm sure. But it is a very good band. You should check it out, especially if this is the type of music that you're into. Number 18, this probably is no surprise to anybody whatsoever because I've talked this up several times. That is the new organ dealer. What is this called? Oh, yeah, The Weight of Being. Jesus Christ. Everlasting Spew. I don't know why I was going to say Transcending Obscurity. Everlasting Spew. Sorry about that. This is Grindcore, a US band out of Grindcore. This is their second full-length album. They have a couple of other splits. out with Bird Flesh and Nerve Grind, and their first full length Visceral Infection was really good. Now this is again that maniacal, high pitched screaming, super fast paced grindcore done to perfection. This has been by far my favorite grindcore release to come out this year. I was super hyped for it, and I was really excited when they finally put this up for pre-order. I struck out on getting the vinyl. Everlasting Spear really needs to, they need to start investing more into those vinyl pre-orders, let me tell you. But yeah, just such a fantastic album. And the album artwork, just a little bit of a tidbit about this, is done by the ex-vocalist of Wormrot, Aerus. So this is his album art here. So fantastic. Again, I cannot talk this up enough. This is by far my favorite grindcore releases to come out this year. Okay. Number 17. Probably not a surprise. If I can pick it up, probably would have gotten a lot higher if more stuff hadn't come out, and that is, of course, Dying Fetus. Make Them Beg for Death. Yep, the iconic, legendary Dying Fetus, one of the original OGs of the brutal death metal sound, at least for me. I mean, I'm sure, just, you know, they're iconic. I don't need to go into detail about Dying Fetus. You guys know who these are. Who these guys are. The U.S. brutal death metal band. This is their 100th album. I'm just kidding. It's their, how many do they have out now? 3, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9th album. And this one is very good. I would say this is probably my favorite album of theirs since War of Attrition. Maybe even Stop at Nothing. Been listening to this a ton. When it first came out, I was just so hyped. I would definitely say some of their best stuff that they've put out in a while. Super catchy, very well done, brutal death metal, fast paced in a lot of areas. Just a very, very good album from Dying Fetus. I don't think I need to talk a little bit more about this. I think everybody, for the most part, if you're watching this video, you've either heard it or you've already judged on whether or not if you like it. But the one criticism is I'm not the biggest fan of the album artwork. I know a lot of other people aren't. I also don't like when they use this logo, but that's just personal preference. It's not a deterrent for me to listen to it. But overall, I probably would have ranked this a little bit higher, but there are some other albums that I ended up listening to a lot more that when they came out, and I just have a little bit more. Yeah, but again, still one of my favorites to come out. So Dying Fetus. And this is out on Relapse Records, so not hard to get whatsoever. Next one is kind of didn't expect to have this on my list. I'm not going to lie to you guys. And that is the new Suffocation Hymns from Apocrypha. Yeah, so if you know me well, you know that Suffocation is pretty much my favorite death metal band, with the exception of, you know, the Norms of Death and Cannibal Corpse. Some of their albums, Effigy and Breeding the Spawn and Pierced from Within, are like my all-time favorite death metal albums. So I'm a huge fan of this band. I own everything on multiple formats. And when I found out that Frank was leaving the band and he was hanging it up, I was a little bit saddened to see that they moved on and found a new vocalist, Ricky Myers, and then they came in and they released this album. So I immediately had a preconceived determination that I probably wasn't going to like this album, that I probably was going to be one of those people that are like, ooh, it's not Suffocation anymore because Frank's not in the band. But upon further listening, after the first listen, this album is really good. And Ricky fits in so well with this band. It's a very good album. In fact, I'm going to just go out and say it right now. It is better than Of the Dark Light and Pinnacle of Bedlam. And even maybe the self-titled Suffocation album. Dropped it. Not gonna edit that out, so don't worry. I do love Blood Oath, though. I kind of have a hard time saying it's better than that because that's like one of my favorite albums by them. But yeah, a fantastic album. I finally broke down and bought the CD. I took a while to get it, but when I finally did, I've been listening to this a ton. This is out on Nuclear Blast Records. I don't think I need to talk any more about this band. You guys know who they are. You probably heard the album already. But yeah, Suffocation is in at number 16. Number 15, probably one you weren't expecting to see. I'm not going to be able to pronounce this band's name. Is it Nnithing or Nnithing? Agonial Hymns. My case is jacked to shit. Look at that. Still haven't replaced it yet. Yeah. New Standard Elite is what this is out on. That glare is awful. So let me just take this out of the CD case here so you can get a nice glimpse of that awesome album artwork. I love that album artwork. This is something that I mentioned briefly on here and then never brought it up again, and I wish I had, because I have listened to this a fucking lot. Like, a lot. This is by far the most fun and interesting and unique brutal death metal that I have listened to in a long time. This is a one-man project or band by Matt Kilner, who is simply incredible at drumming and other instrumentations. He is most notably known from the band Vitriol, who is also freaking awesome. He's also in Gorgasm. Just a super talented guy. His drumming is cream of the crop, probably one of the best in the goddamn game, or the whole entire scene, and just fantastic. I cannot praise this enough. It's his first full length. I had never heard anything else besides that he had put out. It looks like there was an EP and a split that has been out from previous years, but I had never heard that. So I'm a huge fan of this album. It's very interesting, and I would say if it's something that might take you a moment to really wrap your head around when you're first listening to it, because there's a lot going on each song. But when it clicks, and the artwork is done by Cam Smith. Again, I love that album art, and the logo also is top tier. That is top tier brutal death metal logo looking there. So again, it's hard for me to say and put into words what this album makes me feel like, other than just pure joy when I'm listening to it. It is amazing. And I have to shout out Crypticus, Pat from YouTube, also Twitter, and a bunch of other things, and then Cody from Afterbirth for really putting this on my radar, because they were tweeting about it a ton when it first came out, and I immediately checked it out, and it's been one of my favorites to come out ever since. So check this out. It's so good, especially if you're a brutal death metal fan. Amazing stuff. Okay, we are getting to the last of the crop here. Next is, again, not another surprise, Nothingness with Supraliminal. I can never say that. Everlasting Spew release again. I've talked about this album several times this year. It was on the stream on Heavy Metallurgy where I said this is one of my favorite albums so far to come out this year. This is one of the earlier releases of the year. This came out, when did this come out? Like, really early in the year. This was a January release, so this has been out for a while now, and it led the pack. It really led the charge of the death metal releases this year in terms of being some of the best. This is their second full length. It is a band out of the US, and spectacular. It is aggressive. It is very well written. It's got riffs galore. I love the vocal style of this and just everything. Honestly, the album cover looks a bit like possibly it could be like a grindcore / gore grind album maybe, but it's definitely death metal done very well. Overall, it's just a very good album. It's just got some awesome riffs, and it's stuck with me all the way from January. Like, this whole entire year, I've said this is one of my favorite albums. So The Hollow Gaze of Death is their first full length. That's also a really good album. They've also been reissuing that all year round, so if you see it, pick it up, because that's also very good. They have a very good catalog so far. They've only got 2 albums out, but it is a very good band. I think it's a new up-and-coming band. I think they're going to find a lot of great success in their career. I love this album. It's very, very good. Number 13 is Fossilization with Leprous Daylight, another Everlasting Spew release. This is probably the most Everlasting Spew releases that I've had in my year-end list, but this is not a surprise whatsoever. Fossilization has been one of my favorite modern death metal bands to come out within the recent years. They're members of the other amazing death metal band, Jupiterian, or Death Doom band, I guess you could say. And they have this band out. They released a EP called He Whose Name Was Long Forgotten in 2021. I loved that EP, and I still listen to it a lot. And then they got picked up by Everlasting Spew, and they finally released their debut full length this year, and it did not disappoint. This is dark and suffocating death doom, just done the correct way. It's not boring. It's super good. Just everything about it is so awesome. Rotten the Abyss, the final song on this album, is so good. Even from Aeon blending into it, but the whole entire album is very, very good, and just simply a phenomenal death doom album. That very dark and cavernous, menacing and suffocating death doom, which is what I tend to go towards when I'm looking for this type of metal or death metal music. So very, very good. Check this out if you haven't yet. I think this is kind of flying under the radar a little bit this year, and that makes me a little bit sad because it definitely deserves high praise. Okay, next is another band that has been here since the very beginning for me, and that is Astriferous. I can never say your guys' name. I'm so sorry. Pulsations from the Black Orb. Now this is out on MSUO Meisako Un Ocho Records, and this came out. What date did it come out? Pretty early in the year too, back in March. So yeah, this was another earlier release. Suffocating dissonant death metal is the best way I can explain it. Essentially, what you're seeing in this album cover is what you're getting with that. I love this album cover too. I've been in love with this album ever since I heard it. It was pretty high up in my list, and I again, has been one of my favorite albums to come out this year, all year long. I still spin it all the time. The band is out of Costa Rica, and this is their first ever full length. So I had never heard of them before, and MSUO tends to do that with me. They tend to put out bands that I had never heard of, and then I listened to them, and I absolutely love them. They pick really, really stellar bands on their label. So one of my favorite labels too, so definitely check them out if you have not. It's cosmic death metal for sure, but it's very suffocating. It's got that dissonance and that very dark and heaviness to it. I absolutely love this album. It's so good, and I think this is by far going to be on a lot of people's year-round list if they've heard this. So yeah, check this out if you haven't. And then finally at number 11, I'm sure some of you probably assumed this would have been higher considering who it is. That is, of course, Cannibal Corpse with Chaos Horrific. I mean, what's there to be said at this point about Cannibal Corpse that hasn't already been said? They're one of my all-time favorite bands. I love the shit out of them. I love both the Chris Barnes and Corpse Grinder era. I have every single one of their albums. I did a whole entire discography thing several months ago when this was first announced. And yeah, it's a very good album. I do really enjoy it. It has a lot of Gallery of Suicide on here, elements I hear, and that's one of my favorite Cannibal Corpse albums. I would say I probably haven't listened to it nearly as much as I have with past Cannibal Corpse releases. I think that's just because there's been so much stuff that came out this year along with this. But still, has been one of my favorite albums to come out this year. It is simply stellar and simply fantastic, in my opinion. They can do no wrong at this point for me. That is all that I have from my part 4 of my video series. Part 5 will be coming shortly after this. That'll be my favorite top 10. Let me know in the comments, again, if there's anything that you've listened to that you liked in here, or what you prefer, or what you've been listening to, what I should check out that I missed. So I will see you guys in the next one.